This is an article I found, and I know about this from being a teacher. I didn't think of it as being a design principle. So this has to do with, one of the things this has to do with is, for computer science, is interface. If your interface is intuitive and easy to understand, you don't have the same cognitive load. And I misspelled cognitive there, didn't I? So what is cognitive? What is that talking about? What's cognitive?
Your brain.
Yeah, it's basically thinking. Cognitive. There. So if I'm working on something I'm familiar with, I can learn something new about that without a lot of extra effort. Like I'm working on a Latin beat right now for one of the songs that we're playing in jazz band. And it's nothing I've quite ever done, but I know how to learn it. I just keep practicing and I'm fine. If I'm starting out brand new at the drums and somebody sits me down and I have to do 4 things at once, is that going to be a bigger cognitive load than me learning just a new beat on the drum set? Yes. So you can think of your brain as having a certain amount of working memory. And it does. If that gets overloaded, that's called cognitive load, that area of working memory you have where you can keep track of things and think about it. If that gets squished too tight, then you go over into overwhelm and overload, and your guys go like this. And I see that in my classes. That means you've reached your limit. So a good teacher, which I hope I am one of those, tries to keep you at the edge of that and not make it boring, but push you, because if you don't get pushed, you don't learn anything. So we look at that in education, we call it scaffolding, meaning I want my problems to get gradually harder. So not suddenly you're designing a CIA database, you're building something a little bit more difficult each week. That's why I really like how I worked with some other people to do this. In computer science, we start with Python. We do the same thing again in Java. We do the same thing again in C++. By the time you're done, you're like, okay, I don't care what the language is, I can figure it out. And I can solve a problem in anything. So we're scaffolding that because the hardest part of programming is designing the algorithm, solving the problem. So far, so good. And there's a couple other videos that's pretty good. So whenever your brain is like, you've had it, take a break, come back and try it again, work on it a little bit every day. As an athlete, is anybody in here athlete? Yes. Do you wait till the day hour before the big game to start practicing? Yep. Same thing with cognitive stuff. You have to keep working on it every day. So if I have to think hard, so for instance, when I'm looking at a program and it's easy to read and it's well commented and has spaces in it, that decreases my cognitive load and that makes me happy. If I have to like figure out what the world you were thinking, that decreases my cognitive load and I'm not as happy. Yeah, really, it has nothing to do with happy, but it is something that as you're looking at things, think about how much time it took you to figure something out. Like, was there a lot of intuitiveness to us putting that server racks on in the last class? No, we were all frustrated.
Yes.
You would have said yes. Okay. You weren't there, Owen. I finally went down and got Chris and he showed us how it worked. Of course, Owen knew the answer all along, but he was keeping it to himself, right?
Well, you said you wanted a part of it all. I was like, I don't know, I do part of it too.
Yeah, I was
hold it.
Yeah, okay. Anyway, yes, Owen is smarter than we are. I told you so. Isn't that how that works? There's an I told you so. Anyway, this I find interesting because as you're learning, being aware of your learning is called metacognition. Being aware of when you're in overwhelm, being aware of when you don't understand something. The minute you go into overwhelm, what's your first thing you should do in a class? I don't understand what you're talking about. Please say that again. When you get into overload and, ask. So metacognition is another field of study that looks at this. It means you're thinking about your thinking. You're looking at how you learn, which I did when I was starting to practice the Latin beat for Love for Sale, I think was the name of the song. I've not done a lot of Latin beats in the past, so I have to learn a new one. Good practice. So far, so good. Is this relevant to computer science? Oh, yeah. when you design an interface. Yeah, it makes a difference. All right.